this latest of our insight briefings. So today we're going to be feeding back on the recent wave of our Voice of the Customer research. And this is our regular programme of research where we explore a particular topic, and we do that by talking to our customers, and that's through both a mix of surveys and also focus groups to understand the issue in a bit more detail. And what we've been looking at this quarter is the aspect of relationships and social networks, which is one of RNIB's new impact areas. Now, we know that developing healthy social networks and relationships is a critical part of an individual's well-being. It provides emotional support, reduces isolation, and essentially enhances the overall quality of people's lives. So what we're going to be doing today is to take you through the findings of our latest wave of research, which really highlights the challenges and opportunities faced by blind and partially sighted people when it comes to navigating their social relationships. Before we kick off, just to alert you, we're going to be playing some audio clips during this presentation. I know that sometimes we do encounter some problems with those, so recommendation, if possible, is to use your laptop speakers for the audio rather than other devices if you are not in too public a place, because we generally find that's a bit better. It's a bit intermittent whether the sound comes out otherwise. So I'm going to be handing over to Danielle Colcom and Kadra Habain, who are going to be taking you through the findings today. I have to say that Kadra is very kindly standing in at the last moment for Robin Kay. He's also on the line, but as he's lost his voice today, he's probably not best placed not to be presenting. So, but he's there as well to answer any questions. When we've been through the results, we're also going to hand over to Emily Papaleo, who's the Impact Area Manager for Social Networks and Relationships, and she's going to talk a little bit about the next steps. So if that's okay, I will hand over to Danielle. Can I just check, is the PowerPoint showing on the screen okay?
Yeah.
It is, okay. Danielle, leave it to you and just give me a shout when you want me to click to the next slide, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Hilary. Welcome, everyone. My name's Danielle Colcom. I work in the Research and Insight team, and I'm going to be taking you through some of the findings today. Just a few other credits in terms of who was involved in this research. So Robin Kay, who's also on the line, he works in our research team. He was responsible for the survey element of the research. We've also got Jane, who is our social media analyst. And then we did also have Charlene Kerr-Spencer, was an insight officer when we started the fieldwork for this. So she collected most of the original focus group data. Next slide, please. Okay, so who are the research team and what do we do? So we listen to our community. That's the key to our Voice of the Customer programme. So we're the true, authentic voice of lived experience. And just to give you a bit of an overview of how many people we speak to on average, we include about 70 customers annually in our focus groups. We speak to about 1,500 people via survey, and we code for about 20,000 comments on our Community Connection Facebook pages. The next thing we offer is we deliver credible insights. So we persuade and influence RNIB and the wider sector and our partners. We also educate and challenge perceptions, engaging in different opinions and different ideas and shifting perspectives. And the last thing is we drive strategic direction, action and value for money. We support RNIB to reach its ambitions. So that's why we exist. Next slide, please. So why did we choose to focus on social relationships this time? So Hilary briefly touched on this already, but I'll just give you a bit more detail. So social relationships and networks is a priority area for RNIB, but it's also really fundamental to human need to maintain meaningful relationships. It's important to everyone. We all need social connection, and we know how much that helps to boost our mood and manage our emotions. Previous research did tell us that 65% of people from our Outlook study said that staying in touch with friends and family and socializing in the ways that they want to has a huge impact, positive impact on their quality of life. However, blind and partially sighted people do face challenges when trying to form and maintain meaningful relationships with others, and many factors can complicate how people with sight loss approach and maintain relationships with their friends, family, and their extended communities. So that's why we decided to explore this in a little more detail. Next slide, please. So what did we want to find out? Okay, so the research set out to better understand a few things. The first one was how sight loss affects relationships with family, friends, and romantic partners of people with sight loss. The second was how public perceptions impact relationships and social networks of people with sight loss. And the third was we needed some solutions and tools to help improve social relationships of blind and partially sighted people. Next slide, please. So who did we speak to specifically for this wave of research? We carried out a UK-wide study and we spoke to 403 blind and partially sighted people. 384 of those people were represented via the survey. This was 24% representation from our devolved nations. 19 people took part in our online focus groups, 4 of which were from devolved nations, and we also monitored and collected responses from our online community as well. So just to let you know that this is a very high-level summary. The full report is available and we'll go into much more detail, and it's available via the Insight Hub if you want the full report. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Kadra now, who's going to talk you through some misconceptions about sight loss.
Thank you, Danielle. Hi, everyone. I'm Kadra. I'm a Senior Research Officer. I'll be taking you through our first key finding, which is around misconceptions. Our focus group participants told us that they face various social and practical challenges when interacting with the public and when forming new relationships. Some of the challenges included intrusive questioning from strangers and feeling misunderstood or seen solely through the lens of their sight loss. Stereotypes and misunderstandings included, but were not limited to, a person's ability to parent and their appearance, for example, quote unquote, not looking blind. They also told us that having a visible indicator of sight loss, such as a white cane or a guide dog, can draw unwanted attention from the public. Our wider online community discussions tell us that those who use dating apps to connect with others are better able to respond to intrusive questions due to acceptance of their sight loss and a disability-confident approach to being online. However, even family and friends can hold misconceptions about sight loss. A third of our survey respondents reported that some friends, family, and members of the public have misconceptions about their sight loss, which impacts the quality of their relationships with them. This is summed up in the quote that we are about to play. Hilary?
But I feel quite sad at the way people no longer see me. They see a long cane user, but they haven't got a clue. They just talk to you sometimes like, yeah, either you can't hear or you've had your brain removed. I do find that quite difficult. But I feel quite sad.
Sorry.
What we did find, however, is that challenging misconceptions can have a positive impact on social relationships. Conversations with our online community tell us that blind and partially sighted people who were once themselves sighted recognize that they held misconceptions about sight loss before they lost their vision. One community member suggests that they maintained that cycle of misunderstanding among their social circle when they were first diagnosed, and others refer to having pitied pitied people who had to use canes or had a guide dog prior to their sight loss diagnosis. However, there was a positive attitude towards challenging misconceptions about sight loss. 2/5 of those that we surveyed reported that challenging misconceptions about sight loss positively impacted the quality of their relationships with others. And as a follow-up, we asked how comfortable participants felt challenging misconceptions. 2/3 reported that they felt either comfortable or very comfortable challenging misconceptions about their sight loss. And the quote that we will now play shows this in more detail.
If we can accept our limitations but understand that that doesn't limit us and stop us from doing anything, and we can communicate that to the people around us, that can cause a ripple effect that makes, you know, the broader community start to understand that actually, yes, we have a disability, yes, we may ask for help or instruction or direction, but we're still entirely capable of every other aspect of our life. But that one task, that one thing we've asked for help with, is that only thing we in fact need help with, and that's why we've asked. So, you know, it's a lot of responsibility we all have on ourselves, and it's too much for some people, but it's the only way to challenge what has been presented to people in the past. If we can accept.
Okay, I'll take over from here. So the next key finding was around changing dynamics within relationships. So what we found was that some people with sight loss feel unsupported by their family members, which negatively impacts their relationships with them. So we asked survey participants whether they had seen a change in the dynamics of their relationships with their family due to their sight loss, and 2/5 agreed or strongly agreed that they had. There were mixed experiences from focus group participants about how supported they felt by their family. Whilst most reported positive experiences, some strong negative themes did come from a few participants, and these tensions often stemmed from a lack of understanding and communication about sight loss within their family unit. Their experiences ranged from siblings who shut down conversations around sight loss to being emotionally unsupported by their parents, leaving them feeling misunderstood. Listening to the voices from our online community pages showed similar experiences and highlighted how the availability of RNIB's online community, Connect community, allows their friends and families to learn more about how they could better support their loved ones. And we also found that support and understanding are not guaranteed, even if other members of the family have sight loss themselves. So the emotional turmoil experienced in the quote that we're about to play highlights the impact that both the condition and then the family's reaction can have on an individual.
I was devastated that nobody would talk about it, and I was devastated that nobody would see anything from my point of view at all. So it was a really strange time. The one time you needed your family, all I got told was, well, if you have got it, how do you think your father feels? He's giving it to you.
Next slide, please.
I was devastated.
So the next thing we found here was quite significant, and that is that sight loss can add strain to a parent-child relationship. Some participants within our focus group mentioned that their parents had struggled to accept their sight loss when they were young, leading to delayed access to emotional support. And participants who did not feel supported as a child or had the space to discuss their blind or partially sighted identity were more likely to report a lack of confidence and emotional struggles as an adult. One focus group participant spoke of becoming the adult she needed but didn't have as a child, with some others mentioning that they did not want to make the same mistakes that their parents had made, as seen in the next quote we're about to play.
Didn't have that confidence because that wasn't nurtured. So I'm a true believer in nurturing that. We have to foster, to have good relationships with your children or your family, you have to nurture it. And it's very much like a plant. If you don't water it, it dies. So so in my own life, so obviously being a mum of 3 now, you know, relationship connection and relationship is really important to me, and I kind of base ours on communications. The communications really everything that was lacking in my life. I read this quote once, and it said, I became the adult I needed as a child, and that's what I became. So my whole journey has been all about that, to help so that I don't make those same mistakes with my children.
And just one final point on
confidence, because that.
Just one final point on this slide is that in addition to what we found in the focus groups, the social media listening across RNIB's online community, they did share similar themes, but within a wider family context. So parents often experience feelings of guilt surrounding a diagnosis. There was some fear and confusion for the child's future, and a strong sense of isolation, as some parents had no support network, and they didn't know anyone else to speak to. So parents of children and young people with a vision impairment agreed that they did grieve the loss of their child's vision. I'm now going to hand over to Kadra.
Thank you. Our last key finding is around how romantic relationships are impacted by sight loss. Our focus group participants who experienced sight loss or deterioration in their vision after their relationship began noted negative changes within the dynamic of their romantic relationships. And this often stemmed from the loss of independence, which put more domestic and caregiving responsibility onto their partner. The following quote that I'm going to read out shares the experience from one focus group participant. And he here refers to the participant's husband. And he did say to me a few months ago that my blindness has taken over and ruined our lives. And I would agree with him, really, because the more sight I have lost, the different the whole relationship becomes. Despite the additional pressure on those closest to blind and partially sighted people, only 1 in 6 survey participants agreed or strongly agreed that their family have received the practical support that they need to adjust to their sight impairment so that they can maintain their relationships. The sometimes sudden shift in responsibility mentioned previously can have an emotional impact on the partners of blind and partially sighted people. And the following quote that we're going to play demonstrates this.
Because my husband suddenly became the carer for 3 people, although that was short term, the mental health impact he felt was massive, because he went from having a partner that equally contributed to every part of the household to him having to manage everybody's calendars, manage my needs, which he didn't have to do a huge amount physically for me, but certainly be very supportive, making sure that I had everything I needed, getting me to the appointments with all of the unknown. And actually, thankfully, he was able to reach out for some counselling. He got it very quickly because he needed it.
And there was one more point on that last slide. And just like practical support, emotional support was often not received by the family of those with sight loss, with only a sixth finding the support that they needed to maintain the relationships that they wanted to. Next
because
slide.
my husband.
Thank you. And our last finding is that sight loss
obviously.
And our last finding is that sight loss can hinder blind and partially sighted people's ability to find new romantic partners. Some of our focus group participants discussed the challenges that they encountered when seeking new romantic relationships. These included misconceptions about their sight loss or discomfort from prospective partners around their differences. Another factor to consider regarding dating is that many apps and services are inaccessible to blind and partially sighted people due to the reliance on visuals. The following quote that we're going to play shows the experience of dating from a focus group participant.
On nights out and stuff, I'll meet people. I might not have my dog with me. They might be interested, and then they might find out that I've got problems with my vision, and that's when that disappears. Online dating is horrific because, one, it's not that accessible, but actually I think it's judged on visuals. And basically people are making perceptions. When do you tell somebody you're visually impaired? And
however, it isn't all negative. While 1 in 4 participants said that they had experienced challenges in forming or maintaining a romantic relationship because of their sight loss, almost half of our participants had not. And also our online community members appear to be making greater use of fully accessible or disability apps. Those who feel confident using online methods to meet new partners describe the sifting process they undertook to weed out unwanted attention. One of the biggest areas of conversation surrounding dating was when and how to tell a prospective partner about their sight loss. When online dating, some prefer to wait until their date gets to know them first, and this approach aims to counteract initial judgments and stereotypes about blindness. And for others, it's important to reveal their disability upfront to ensure that they keep themselves safe. I'll hand over to Danielle.
Okay, thanks, Kedra. So now that we have all of this insight, what's next, I guess? So as a research team, we put together some suggested actions of how we can support and maintain and restore relationships for blind and partially sighted people, their friends and their family members. So the first, I guess, recommendation is around the individual. So what we propose here is a package of support for people with sight loss. This could be when they're newly diagnosed or at the point that they need it. It could include tools and guidance on having conversations with friends and family, including identifying what they're capable of and what adjustments they might need. And this is in order to, excuse me. This is all in order to develop high expectations for themselves and the skills that they need to manage their own lives. The second element of this could be information about what RNIB can offer around social connection. So, for example, peer support groups, virtual and face-to-face networks. And then we could also include, the next element would be friends and family. So we've identified quite clearly in the findings that friends and family do also go through a grieving process when there is sight loss diagnosis. So we also propose a package of support for friends and family to include information about supporting someone with sight loss or a child with a vision impairment that recognises that grief can be experienced by family and friends, and then key ways to manage this. Resources could be tailored towards families to help build a positive view of life with sight loss and how to move forward. And then very specifically, additional resources for parents of VI children. We could also have here more guidance on for parents and carers dealing with the emotional impact of receiving a diagnosis for a VI child. And this could form part of the new Parent Pathways offer. And the last element here is to focus on society. So we'd also like to see us sort of further RNIB's campaigning work to bust the myths around what people are capable of in terms of maintaining and growing relationships. Some resources to explain the value of social networks and how this relates to well-being, presenting a factual and positive narrative of sight loss. And then we'd also like to foster some commercial partnerships with mainstream dating apps to enhance the accessibility and safety features for blind and partially sighted people. So there's a lot in there. We as an insight team, we do make these suggestions based on what the customers are telling us they need. The ideas have already been socialised around ELT and our SLT teams. But we do understand that RNIB isn't responsible for delivering on every suggestion, but we've made these hypotheses based on the insight from the customers, and hopefully it will inform some next steps